Hi, my friends, and welcome to Master of Horror, where I give you the scariest, true, paranormal stories that I have ever come by. These are 3 true, scary paranormal stories in Thunderstorm Sounds, number 67. Okay, my friends, now let's begin.
Scary, true, paranormal story number 1. The Haunted Room.
This happened in 2014, the year my daughter was born. It all began when we first moved into our house, which was built in the early 2000s. I was still pregnant at the time. While moving in, I noticed that the light in our daughter's room would be left on when many times we switched it off. I brushed it off as an accident or maybe an electrical problem until a few months later, after my daughter was born. We settled into our new home and made the room above the garage our hangout spot. One day, while my husband watched our 4-month-old daughter, he told me while he was in the rocking chair, he thought he saw me making my way to the garage really slow. He said he felt as if something was off. He called out my name, but he said I didn't turn around. He distinctively remembered seeing my dark brown hair. When he got up and went to the garage, there was no one there. He checked the upstairs hangout room, but again, no one was there. This really creeped us out, but somehow we were able to move past it. However, when our daughter had to have surgery 6 months later, our friend volunteered to house sit for us while we were in the hospital. He had been resting on the futon in the hangout room when he felt something aggressively hitting the futon mattress. Again, we never told him about our experiences in the house, but our heart sank when he messaged my husband asking us if our house was haunted. With everything going on with our daughter at the time, the last thing we wanted to hear was confirmation that our house was haunted. From that point on, whenever I was in the hangout room, I felt this unnerving sensation you get when you're being watched. I always had that feeling only when I was near that room. Sometimes I would be in the garage doing something and have a glance up to see the closet door in the hangout room cracked open, even though I vividly remember closing it. Small things like this may not sound too alarming or scary, but in the back of my mind, I knew that there was an unwelcomed presence in my house. I imagined that something was just behind that closet door staring right at me. We had to deal with that dark presence until the day we moved out of there. Thankfully, we haven't seen or felt anything ever since then.
True, scary, paranormal story number 2. A house in Texas.
Hi, my name is Jesse, and I have lived in Texas for most of my life, until now. Growing up there wasn't exactly ideal, and I didn't have the best relationship with my parents either. I pretty much dreaded coming home from school every day. There were so many scary things going on at home. I'm going to share with you a series of strange events that happened to me when I was growing up. First of all, when I was about 6 years old, back then I used to play with the flashlight in the dark without a care in the world. However, on this night when I pointed my flashlight at the wall besides my bed, I saw something horrific. There was a shadow figure standing in the doorway. Naturally, I immediately pointed my light toward the figure, but the light was not able to illuminate it. At the time, I really didn't understand. As I lowered the flashlight, I could see the figure's rough outline. It seemed to have a dark outline. Just then, it suddenly started moving towards me. I was absolutely terrified. Seeing this thing as an adult would be terrifying. How much more as a kid? I didn't know how to process it. The last thing I remember doing was turning off the flashlight and running into my parents' room. I still don't know how I made it past the shadow of terror. Of course, my mom didn't believe me, and even as a kid, I knew that I couldn't go to my parents with stuff like this. A few years later, I was in middle school, and I was having a sleepover at my place with a friend. We went to the garage to grab some snacks and drinks after watching a movie. It was really late, so it was pretty dark. Once we entered, I sensed something was watching us. "I think we should get out of here," my friend said. My friend could also feel the unwelcomed presence. We quickly grabbed our stuff and were about to exit the garage when I pointed my flashlight near the mattresses that were leaning against the wall to the left. That's when we saw something quickly duck behind the mattresses to avoid the light. It was also that dark figure that I had saw before. We immediately shut the door and locked it. We then sat back down in the living room. We asked ourselves, what the hell did we just witness? I looked over to the clock and it was exactly 3:03 a.m. The last encounter was a week after my grandmother had passed away. She lived with us at the time. I remember that I went to the living room to use the computer and chat online. After a while, I heard a door open. I assumed that it was just my mom or dad using the bathroom. 15 minutes later, I got that strange feeling, the same feeling I felt the night my friend slept over. I got up and walked past the kitchen and dining room table and peeked into my grandmother's room, which was connected to the hallway. The door was slightly open. A dreadful feeling formed in the pit of my stomach. Something told me that if I didn't close that door, something scary would happen to me. So I quietly walked down the hallway to my grandmother's room. I was petrified as I quickly closed the door. I made it back to the living room where I stayed until the sun came back up. I'm so glad that I got out of that house, and I'm now living with my boyfriend. Who knows what else would have happened if I stayed there?
Scary, true paranormal story number 3. The woman in a white dress.
Hi, my name is Catherine, and this happened in 2012 in El Paso, Texas. When I was 20 years old, I was working as a supervisor at a store, and I got off of work late, around 3 o'clock a.m. I got into my car and I took the usual way home, which was down a dark, long, quiet back road that led all the way back to my house. Everything was going as usual until I spotted a figure walking in the distance. As I drove closer to it, it appeared to be a woman walking alongside the road dressed in all white. Upon seeing the woman, I got goosebumps going all the way down to my legs. Seeing the woman walking all by herself, I started to feel a little creeped out. At this point, I was really close to her, but I still had not seen her face yet. As I approached even closer, I got a better look at her since she was walking right beside the driver's window. She had long, black, messy hair that was blocking most of her face. She appeared to be barefoot. I was petrified. Then, as I drove exactly parallel to her, she turned towards me and I was finally able to see her face. There was no face, no mouth, or no eyes. It was just a pale face. I floored it, and the second I passed her, my worst nightmare came to life as the woman began running right beside my window. My heart was racing. I pressed down on the accelerator as much as I possibly could, but the terrifying woman kept pace with my car, never leaving the window. My mind could not process what was happening. I started praying out loud and tried my hardest not to look out the window or to pay attention to my peripheral vision. I didn't want to see her, although I could see that she was looking straight into my window. Eventually, the woman vanished from view. I then looked into my rearview mirror to see the white figure just standing there watching me until I was out of sight. I finally made it home sobbing and running into my husband's arms. I told him everything that happened, and to my surprise and horror, he said that he had once taken that same back road home one night and also saw a woman with long black hair wearing a white dress walking alongside the road, but for whatever reason, she didn't chase after him. I still have no idea who or what that woman is. I can only guess that it was a ghost of a woman that died alongside that dark road. What I do know is that I'm extremely lucky to have escaped her clutches. I never go down that road, and whoever happens to drive down that road at night alone, may God be with them.